Ever wonder why a grown man slipping on a banana peel is universally hilarious, but in real life, it's just painful and maybe a little sad? Or how a talking squirrel in a movie somehow makes perfect sense in its own bizarre world, but if you actually encountered one, you'd probably need therapy. Here's what most people don't realize. The most absurd comedy you've ever seen isn't random chaos. It's not just throwing weird things together and hoping something sticks. Today, we're diving deep into the comedic genius that turns pure absurdity into side-splitting, logical narratives. We're exposing the secret mechanics, the hidden architecture that makes you laugh at things that should make absolutely no sense. Get ready to discover that the most illogical scenarios are actually built on foundations of brilliant, strategic logic. Let's start by challenging everything you think you know. When you see absurd comedy, talking animals, impossible physics, a character who's inexplicably obsessed with a rubber duck, your brain registers random nonsense, right? Wrong. Behind every great absurd comedic moment are what I call logic engineers, writers and performers who meticulously construct bizarre but internally consistent universes. These aren't accidents. They're architectural marvels. The banana peel isn't funny because it's random. It's funny because comedy has established clear rules about banana peels over decades. They're inexplicably slippery, they appear at the worst possible moments, and the slip itself follows predictable physical comedy principles. Once these rules exist, they become a shared language between comedian and audience. Your brain derives genuine satisfaction from understanding the rules of a seemingly lawless comedic universe, even when those rules are completely divorced from reality. Let me show you how this works in practice. Think about cartoon physics. A character runs off a cliff and hangs in mid-air until they look down. Why is that funny? Because the cartoon has established consistent rules. Gravity only works when you acknowledge it. That's absurd, but it's reliably absurd. The audience learns this rule, and from that point forward, every cliff becomes a setup for that expected payoff. Or consider a sitcom that commits to a silly premise. Let's say a character who never breaks character as a method actor. That initial absurdity becomes the foundation. Once established, everything that follows must honor that internal logic. When that character stays in character during a fire drill or a wedding, it's not random absurdity. It's the logical conclusion of the established premise. This is the bizarre blueprint at work, meticulously connecting seemingly unrelated elements to build a consistent, albeit ridiculous, internal world. The key is consistency. When the absurd follows its own rules faithfully, audiences can anticipate and deeply appreciate the comedic payoffs. But here's where it gets really interesting. The best absurd comedy always roots itself in something fundamentally human. Even the most far-fetched scenarios tap into universal experiences, emotions, or social anxieties we all recognize. This is the secret weapon of absurdist comedy. It starts with relatability. Maybe just a frustrated person having a bad day, then gradually escalates into complete chaos. That escalation draws you deeper because you started from a place of recognition. You've had a bad day. You understand frustration. So when that frustration mutates into the character fighting a sentient toaster, or getting trapped in an increasingly bizarre bureaucratic nightmare, you're emotionally invested in the journey. Think about how characters react to the illogical situations around them. Often, they mirror our own bewildered or resigned responses to real-world absurdities. When a character calmly accepts that their boss is now a talking parrot, their deadpan acceptance reflects how we all navigate the increasingly strange world around us. That recognition makes the absurdity resonate emotionally, transforming weird into hilarious. So why do we actually laugh at the illogical? It comes down to the mechanics of satisfaction. When absurd comedy works, your brain experiences something remarkable. It successfully processes a scenario that initially seems nonsensical, but ultimately makes twisted sense within its established framework. That moment of realization, oh, of course that's what happens next given these insane rules, triggers laughter. It's the punchline of internal logic. The surprise isn't random. It's earned. Because the comedy established clear rules, even absurd ones, the payoff feels inevitable in retrospect. This is the difference between arbitrary randomness and strategic absurdity. Random is just chaos. Strategic absurdity builds expectation through consistent internal logic, then subverts it in ways that are unexpected but totally earned within that framework. Your brain loves solving puzzles, and absurd comedy that follows its own rules is essentially a puzzle with a hilarious solution. The true masters of this art form understand these principles instinctively. Groups like Monty Python didn't just throw weird things at the wall. They meticulously crafted alternative logical systems. The Ministry of Silly Walks isn't just random. It's a perfectly logical bureaucracy that happens to govern something absurd. Modern absurdist creators continue this tradition, manipulating logical frameworks with surgical precision. And honestly, in a world where reality itself feels increasingly absurd, this kind of comedy becomes even more valuable. When real life delivers headlines that sound like satirical jokes, absurdist comedy helps us process actual chaos by presenting controlled, crafted chaos. Here's my challenge to you. Rewatch your favorite absurd comedies with new eyes. Don't just laugh. Actively look for the hidden logical architecture. Notice how the most ridiculous moments are actually built on consistent internal rules. Appreciate the strategic brilliance behind what seems like mayhem. Because now you know the truth. Chaos can absolutely be crafted with precision, and the most illogical jokes are often the most carefully constructed. That's the real genius of absurdity.